Right. So yeah, welcome to this month's Construction Cast. We're talking about authentic marketing this month. So I'm going to introduce the speakers, then give you a bit of background on why we're talking about this subject and why it's important for you, not just for us. And then we'll go into it. So the speakers or the panelists and friends that I've got on here today, we'll start with Andy. Andy Matthews is an architect at Andy Matthews Studios. Andy is somebody I met many years ago on a bike ride to the south of France. I think most of our discussions around marketing were at high speed on a descent from the side of a mountain, from what I can remember. And at one point, Andy said to me, we probably ought to stop talking about this now because we're doing about 50 kilometres an hour down a hill. But Andy's worked at a few architect practices over the years, set up his own firm recently. And we had a conversation. Well, I'll come back to what the conversation was shortly, but we had a conversation which led to this session. So that's Andy. Marie Sparks is the head of business development and marketing at Keating Chambers, the barristers' chambers that a lot of people will have come across in London. Marie is, again, somebody I've known for many years since she joined Keating from another set of chambers and runs the very famous Keating Chambers Summer Party, which happened just a few weeks ago, amongst many, many other things that she does. And Lucy Lomas is the founder and director of Luma Marketing. Just before we were coming on this call, we were saying I've not written down the introductions to the speakers, which is a fatal mistake to make. Mm-hmm. So luckily I've remembered everyone's names because they're on the screen, and I even remembered what Lucy's company was called. So Lucy is an excellent marketeer, somebody based up in the northwest of the country, so it's nice to have a little geographical spread as well as a balance of different opinions and viewpoints. So this session, we originally, Andy and I went for another bike ride, because who doesn't like a bike ride? We went up to Scotland and we were sitting in a Jamaican restaurant in Inverness talking about marketing, weirdly, and we were talking about the importance of authenticity and how much of an impact that can have upon your business growth, your success, and the way that you deal with people. So, and a lot of people want to appeal to as many people as possible. And even if we were talking about the subject of people who are Marmite characters, somebody either loves them or doesn't like them, or you might like one person's Marmite is another man's, as I've written in this introduction, another man's marmalade. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but it's the whole point of it being that being authentic is important, because people are far more likely to do business with, as Lucy said to us the other day when we were preparing this, people that they get on with. So that's the kind of discussion that we're going to have today, is what is authenticity, why is it important, and how can you capture it and make sure that people get a bit of it when they're talking to you and dealing with you and you're marketing to them. So we're going to start with what we mean by authenticity, and we have a little bit of a plan, but I'm going to start with Andy, because I think it was Andy and I's conversation originally that brought this up. So Andy, what is authenticity to you?
I think it's probably being somewhat human and maybe daring to show a bit of a personality and accepting that people might not like you. I think that's probably a core part of it. And actually laser focusing on the people that do like you and they share your values and not wasting your time on people who could never be sold to, maybe who just never going to want to work with you. I guess the other point as well is that we've always worked with consultants who couldn't care less who the firm was. It's always about the individual and where they've gone from there. So I guess it's about relationships as well, isn't it?
Yeah, quite. I think that's important, isn't it? It's that kind of the laser focus on people who share your values is a really good point as well. I think if you share values, then you're definitely going to be more likely to work successfully together, I guess, isn't it? So, what about Lucy? What's your thoughts on what is authenticity?
I think we are going to talk about values quite a lot today, because that is what it's all about. Our values are what make us real human beings, and in our world of professional services and business to business, people buy people. Like Andy said, people choose to work with people that they like and trust, and professional expertise is kind of a given within a niche of particular experiences. Authenticity is about being able to be yourself and not having to pretend to be something that you're not.
Quite, yeah. And I think that's the thing. And I guess no greater place is that people by people thing exposed than in barristers' chambers. and I guess Marie, you're going to say something similar. Is it? Would you agree that that's the? I mean, I guess there's people are certainly buying people when it comes to barristers. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree with both Andy and Lucy, really. I mean, I think authenticity is about being genuine, and I think that sometimes means that whatever you're saying, you need to make sure that you're backing up. So your marketing very much has to align with everything else that you're actually fundamentally doing. I think it might include having a sense of some vulnerability, be that on a sort of brand level or an individual basis, and acknowledging maybe some of your failings as well as just sharing your successes. So acknowledging what you might need to do better and what you're looking at doing, rather than just saying we're sort of the finished package and we're kind of perfect. And what Lucy said about expertise being sort of like a given, and that's certainly something that at Keating we find is that they expect our barristers to be at a particular level of intellectual ability, but what our instructing solicitors and clients are looking for is someone that they can be in a room with on a long case for, you know, late into the night and long periods of time. So actually that personal connection is really important. And I think if we are genuine and authentic as a set and also as individuals, that encourages our clients to be the same. And for our clerks that look at matching barristers to a particular case, that is about understanding what the client wants as well, and they're going to bring their authentic selves if you bring yours, I think. So it's better to sort of match people with people that way.
Definitely. And I think that's part of what we do at Limeslade as well. We try, a lot of our work is around business development and introducing people to other people, and whether that's professionally or just, we very often do a lot of that sort of thing. Just, oh, this person might get on with that person. We meet people who we think, oh, they've got a personality that would work with that person, sort of thing. So that we quite often do a lot of that sort of thing for clients and with clients. The other thing that you mentioned there was that thing about acknowledging errors and acknowledging weaknesses and things like that. And I know, Andy, that was one of your points when we were planning the other day, wasn't it? Have you got something around that you'd like to bring in?
I mean, as a small business owner, I found the disjoint between the PR output and the polished, well, it's actually just like Instagram account and all the lovely things we talk about, and what we're actually doing and solving and day to day. And obviously, running a business is challenging at times. So one of the things I shared was I'd mocked up my lead generation pipeline because I'd got really involved in running a job and used a CRM, and it came out in a graph, and then that was interesting. And for whatever reason, I thought other people might find that interesting. And about 30,000 people looked at it in 100 comments or something, which is a bit wild for my LinkedIn. But it was interesting because what was the reciprocation from my network was, oh, great, I'm so glad you're sharing this. Somebody's open at last. And lots of other conversations that come off that. So far from putting off potential clients, hopefully, there's people who will work with us as a result. There's peers in our network that are connected with, and hopefully just a splash of honesty in some of the tech bros on LinkedIn. So.
And as an exercise though in marketing and PR, to get 60,000 impressions on a LinkedIn post is, I mean, I don't know, maybe for Marie and Lucy that's small fry, but that's impressive to me. Yeah, and so just you couldn't achieve that through normal, your normal regular posts about lovely projects and pretty pictures.
I don't think a CGI would have had the same effect.
Yeah,
but the feedback was fascinating, and so many conversations I had to come back the next day and engage with them.
And conceding that humanity and that sort of normal reactions and normal behavior of normal things that happen in your life is something that a lot of people would be very scared about putting onto social media, but actually it can have a really positive effect if it's done well and done in the right way. Can you be too authentic is the next thing that we came across when we were planning this the other day. Do people think there's a chance that you can be too authentic? And again, Andy, I think you had quite strong views on this.
Yeah, I was going to let Marie. I think it was Lucy had a really strong opinion on this when we first met. I can't remember. I mean, I have to take it if not. But
I do have an opinion on this. I think you can be too authentic. There are shapes, particularly in a leadership position when you are role modeling. You've got to think about that quite carefully, and that What I don't mean by that is hiding parts of yourself, but there are different shades of yourself that come to the fore in different environments as appropriate. I think my example was, it's really difficult to have a challenging conversation with a client or a colleague or an employee if yesterday you were having a really intimate conversation about your divorce or your personal life or something. So it's about just maintaining, in some environments, boundaries.
We also had the case of like a single subject that gets played and played and played. I'm not going to say, but it's that lives are more complex, and it's not just about this one issue that you're ramming down people's throats all the time.
Yeah, you need to make sure you're not too one-dimensional, and also remembering that you're still trying to build a trust in that person, and that some messages are perhaps better left to a different forum, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. And without naming particular examples, because we did the other day when we were preparing this, but obviously we're not going to do that now, because that would be very bad. But there are, we all must come across people where there are, they've either got a hobby horse that they jump on all the time, and it's something very personal and very important to them, but actually probably isn't that important or that relevant to everyone else, and it becomes a little bit tiresome.
Also quite negative and destructive at times, maybe.
Yeah, it's negative, and there's kind of a little bit too much of the negativity. We've had people as well where they've kind of got one or two potential clients who have picked up on things like conspiracy theories and things like that, and it's kind of thinking about, well, what would most people's view on this be? Am I right to share strong opinions on conspiracy theories and suggest that they're right? In the public domain, in conversations, in social media, on social media, wherever. And it's about that having a little think and a little word with yourself about, well, maybe perhaps people might get a bit bored of this, or this might be a bit too much for social media or for whatever forum you're in. And again, it's not just online, it's not just social media, it's anything that you do. Like when you're out meeting people, I think Lucy's made this point somewhere in this conversation today as well, is that kind of, it's not just online, it's everything that we do. Lucy, were you going to say something?
I was going to say that everybody has stuff outside of work. They have families and private lives and emotional lives and political lives, and maybe a conspiracy theory life, or maybe they run a rugby team, or do extreme cycling trips to the south of France. Everybody has a life outside of work, and that's really important, because that's what makes us people and gives us depth, and often it's where connections happen. But when you're bringing that into a professional environment, and you do bring it with you, do that, but also be aware of who you're talking to, and give it balance, perspective, all those things. So
yes, that awareness, isn't it, is important.
Yeah. Bring your politics and your conspiracy theories onto LinkedIn, but gently does it.
Careful, yeah. It's again, I had a conversation at Marie's party a few weeks ago, actually, talking about a well-known politician who's gained a seat in the east of England, and it was a delicate subject, so I had to broach it very carefully. But it was a matter, again, one of my interns a few years ago said to me, "You can't talk about politics at professional meetings." So, well, you can, as long as you say X is my favourite politician and all other politicians are idiots. As long as you have a balanced view on things and you're willing to accept other things, it's how you go about those things, I think, in those kinds
and understanding your audience at the time, I think, as well.
100%. I was given the people I was talking to, definitely I knew one of them was very interested in politics, the other person could have been very dangerous territory. So so that's where are we up to? So that's the kind of, can you be too authentic? One of the other things on the flip side of that, and it's that kind of not being authentic enough. And we were talking the other day about people who obsess with, or not obsess with, that's probably not the right word, but are focused too heavily on just work. And I think my old boss, he's retired now, but I used to find it quite hard to talk to my old boss, because all he could ever talk about was work and work and work and work and work. And there are certain people who, whether they're promoting themselves online, is that something that you guys come across?
I think it's definitely something that is probably an issue from a barrister's chamber's perspective. I think, and I think we might be talking about risks of being too authentic or why people shy away from it a bit later. But I think finding that line as to what is professional and what isn't always easy for people to understand. I think that especially when you are, a construction law expert barrister, you are used to really knowing the answer to all of the questions that you pose. So it's much safer to be sharing things that are professional, whereas an opinion, you don't necessarily have the right answer on an opinion. And I think I think people can shy away from that a bit and think, well, it's much safer. I know what I'm talking about if I stick to professional stuff rather than personal things. I know how it's going to land.
Exactly. Do you guys, Andy and Lucy, do you find the same sort of thing? Because I've definitely seen it in the world of expert witnesses and barristers and lawyers. I think perhaps slightly more conservative, if anything, than perhaps the front end of things where you've got shiny projects and exciting stuff to talk about. Or do you find it's?
I would be probably not the right answer, but I haven't surrounded myself with anyone who's done that recently, which is good in a way, because those people aren't showing up as being authentic, I guess. So I guess if you take the example of cycling, and most of our work comes from that. There's usually a bit of initial high-level chat about, what do you do, who you work for, how's it going, but very quickly it's just on to normal conversation and trying to build a relationship as a normal person. You can come back and talk about business later if you do, but just talking about work is so dull. I'd rather not interrogate, but understand a little bit more about the person behind it and their motivations, and if it's work, then that's absolutely fine, and there's often an interesting chat to be had. But.
And I guess that goes back to Lucy's point about the people that take it for it's accepted that you have a professional standard. You're a member of the RIBA. You've got your ARB thing. You're a chartered surveyor, whatever. It's what's behind that people want to know about, isn't it? And there's, Lucy, and so this moves into our next sort of area, isn't it? Is it hard to convince people to be authentic? And what can we do to make things easier? And how can we make being authentic easier, I guess?
I'm going to reflect a bit on what Marie said about how so many of the people we work with, their job is their opinion. So being professional, with their thoughts and opinions is what they do, and they're very comfortable in that space. And also historically, the world has changed massively in the last 5 years. And pre-COVID and going even further back, people would often deny that they didn't have a personal life. They would pretend they didn't have a personal life. They would only ever talk about work or politics or, industry gossip. They would never talk about anything personal. And there's been this massive shift in the last 5 years. And sometimes I think it's going too far the other way, because I have the other side of the coin as well. I have clients who will only talk about personal stuff on LinkedIn. It's just like, no, hold on a minute. The last post you made was about going on holiday and, making time and reflecting, spending time with family, makes me a better business person. And now you want to do that again, and you've not posted anything professional in the meantime. Anybody looking at your profile is going to think you just go on holiday. And somebody else who does the same with, dog walking pictures. Like, where's the work in that mix? It is a bit of both. And being your authentic self, particularly in a professional environment, needs all of those different aspects of self.
Is there a modern twist on that where you're able to share work but with a personal lens, if that makes sense, in terms of celebrating your team's success, your own success, challenges, whatever, that moves it beyond just like, hey, we just completed a project, to like, this was a brilliant journey, or for the expert, not me, but do you know what I mean?
The kind of factual stuff of, planning permission secured, or look at this amazing project, or conference stuff. We try and stick that on professional work channels, whether it's on the website or the company LinkedIn page or whatever it is, first, so that then you as a human being with thoughts and feelings can share that content with your thoughts and feelings about it. I'm really excited to see this project come to fruition, or this was a joy to work on, or look at my team, aren't they amazing? So
Yeah.
you as a human being can bring emotion into your work.
Yeah.
Show to the world
Yeah.
why you love it so much.
And that's a really good. I think this is a point that I would probably strongly focus on, is that we try and tell our clients that, what we can do for you is we can make sure that you've got an active profile professionally on it, and your business profile will be professional. But actually, it needs your input as well. You can't just expect the marketing department to do everything for you. You need to be on board with it as well. And as you say, sharing those feelings and thoughts about your projects and how you interact with them, not just expecting us to be able to do everything for you.
This is right back to the beginning of the conversation, doesn't it, Stuart? People buy people.
Yeah.
Social media is about the social, it's about the human connections more than it is about the media. Business development is about building relationships and establishing trust. That's all very emotive things.
Yeah, exactly. What else have we got to cover? So there's a thing about balance, and that was a good point we made the other day, is that it's important to remember that everybody's got stuff to do as well, isn't it? There's other things going on in people's lives, so it's important to bear that in mind as well. And I liked your point, Lucy we were discussing about decision making and your 4 F's. Do you want to just raise those, because I really like those points, and I think if we do nothing else today, we should share those.
Big complex business management tool. We work with a lot of businesses. I spend a lot of time in the boardroom, big businesses and small, and this is one of the most popular things that I've ever said. And it's about how people make decisions, whether you're looking to recruit somebody into your team, or take on a piece of work, or expand an office, or whatever it is. There are only 4 things you've got to think about. First one is fun. Am I going to have fun? Am I going to enjoy working with this person, or doing this project, or opening an office in Sheffield? Fame. Is it going to make me look good? Is there going to be a case study? Are people going to talk about it in the right way? Is there going to be fame? Fortune. Am I going to make any money? And you'll decide how much money is enough money for that. And future. Is it going to lead on to something else? And if the thing that you're thinking about doing ticks 3 of those 4 boxes, crack on, do it, enjoy it. If it only ticks 2, pass it on to somebody else. It's brilliant, and people love it because it's so easy and you can remember it.
Yeah.
Whether you're running a multi-million-pound business or whether you're a freelancer looking to take on your next project, it works.
I thought it was really interesting, and it can apply to all kinds of situations. And in terms of authenticity, it absolutely helps you decide, doesn't it? And one of the things you were talking about the other day, we were talking about branding and corporate values and where those come from, and how if you get those right, then you can base your decision making around all of those things.
Yeah, because that's where the translation of personal authenticity kind of merges into business authenticity. Because most businesses are small businesses owned and run by ordinary people. So their personality and their values are woven through that business. Leadership comes from the top, culture comes from the top, always. So if you, as a human being, and most human beings don't do this, it's not a natural thing to do. If you write down your core values and your personality and where you want to go and why, it's actually really difficult to do that. But if you are running a business and other people are relying on you for their monthly mortgage payment, you have a responsibility to define that. And when you get it right, it's incredibly powerful.
You benchmark everything against it, from hiring to new clients to internal value. It's the core of what you do, isn't it?
What was the one that you shared yesterday, Andy? The one about no moaning.
Oh yes, we have some post-it notes on the wall where everyone's meant to contribute. One of my favourites is, if you want to moan, that's fine, but you have to propose a solution. So we all get annoyed and frustrated, but that's just wasting ones and zeros at auction. So let's talk about how we improve it and how we solve it together.
Yeah, I really liked that. And that feeds, I think, perfectly into your character as an architect. You are a problem solver.
Yeah.
You create
The more difficult and more problematic the project, the more we love it. So that's where we get our rewards. So.
Yeah, and that's so, which means
it's a core value, isn't it?
it's
So
a
like
perfect
getting
core
stuff
value
done. So yeah.
for you.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to do about 8 things at once here. Somebody's just asked for the four F's again. So I've just written fame, fun, fortune, and future, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That's those. So I've just written them in the chat there. I'm right. So we're rapidly heading to the end of the session. So something that Marie brought up is, will AI fix all of this for us? Can we just get the machine to be authentic for us? Andy?
No, human is best. I think you get the machine to do all the boring stuff and live up to the promise of the 70s, where it's going to make our lives easier and we could have some more free time. No.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. No.
Yeah, I mean, I in sort of bringing up AI, I wasn't necessarily thinking that it would do the job for us. I was wondering whether that would make almost being authentic more important to do, because are people going to become more cynical about the sort of content that's being generated? And if you haven't got that personal side and you aren't actually, you know, carefully crafting your own stuff, then perhaps it's going to look less authentic as AI starts.
I think that's already happening.
Marketing.
You can spot it a mile away, can't you?
Yeah.
I think
it's gross.
My copywriting team can spot when a piece has been written by AI.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's a copywriter, and I think it's a huge opportunity for us. So.
Yeah, it's a helpful tool.
It's a powerful tool, but it's a tool.
And sorry, I was being a little bit provocative by saying
it's not going to take our jobs, Stuart. No.
So that's good. We've had a few questions come in the Q&A. One of the things I'd like to do, because I had a conversation the other day with one of our mutual friends that a few of us know, called Ayo Abbas. So I'm going to bring her in, because what I'd like to do now is just bring up some examples, and if Ayo is around, I've given her the opportunity. We'll see if she appears in a minute, but just to think of anyone or anything that we've seen as good examples of authentic marketing. My example, which I'm going to steal first, is Chris Hallam, if anybody's ever come across. Hi Ayo.
Hello Ayo.
You're on mute, but that's not
there you go. I'm not on mute now.
Away. So Chris Hallam, who's a lawyer based in Manchester, who does a wonderful job of mixing up, and he even brings in politics, personal views, all sorts of things. Pictures of road signs was one of his recent things. It's a shame he's not here, because he'd probably regale us with some of his pictures. But he's very good at balancing his marketing, social media content out with professional content. But I know he gets very frustrated by how popular the pictures of road signs are compared to the pictures of or the articles that he's written on the latest contract form or whatever. Lucy, have you got any examples of things you think have been done well?
Oh gosh, pick on me. Who's doing it really well? Some of the barristers actually do this brilliantly. When there's a decision that's been published, they'll then talk about why that's a really good decision or a really bad decision. And I love those posts. Long form, probably quite complex. A proper read is needed. And I like that opinion.
Okay.
And I also, sorry, Ayo, I'm going to embarrass you. I really like the way Ayo approaches things.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say the same.
Strong and visible and very much herself in a way that I wish I could be.
Which you can be.
Sign up for this.
I don't. I'm guilty of only talking about work.
Yeah, if people
But you know what? It's another skill, right? It's another skill. Like when I probably started pushing my stuff, probably 4 years ago or whatever, I was exactly the same. But then you sort of start doing it. And I think that's what you say to your clients as well, isn't it? Once you start doing it, you get a bit more comfortable and you realise it's not as bad as you once thought. And I think it's exactly the same. And you're right. It's that balance of I share some of my life, but not all of my life, you know. And if I am talking about my son, it's like I was talking to my 9-year-old rather than here's him everywhere. Yeah, it's kind of, and it is woven into. He loves trains and buildings
as well, isn't it? Yeah,
he loves trains and buildings, so that works really well for what I do. You know.
Yeah. And have you got any examples, Ayo, other than yourself?
Obviously, just myself. Who else is there? No, I think so whose stuff do I love? There's Tim Lucas. He's an engineer for Price and Myers. He's a beautiful writer.
Right. Yeah.
And he does a lot of like, he'll be riding his bike at home, on the way home, and he'll talk about that, or a scheme. But the way he writes and the way he observes stuff is really lovely. And he only started, I guess, doing it more from himself in the past year. But his posts are really, really nice. Yeah.
He's a nice guy, actually. And again, interestingly, that is a really good point. Andy, you mentioned a few the other day when we were chatting.
I'm going to change mine, actually. So I've been thinking about Ayo's one, but I think obviously I'm going to illustrate the same point through another person, but someone called Keir Alexander, who used to be a director at Morrison Co. Yeah. He's doing a lot of stuff, sharing stuff about AI for architects. He's doing it in an incredibly positive, constructive way, and he's literally just helping people, but he's talking about his business at the same time. But I think the same with Keir and Ayo is that they show up online and in person in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get a disjoint between those two people, like, oh, I saw this, and then they're like very quiet or probably quite shy. But it's very authentic in terms of what you see is what you get on any medium, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? Like we've concentrated a bit on social media, but you need to know that when you meet the person in person, that they're going to be that person they're portraying on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And that is an important part. And I think the other thing is that people don't realise that actually what you do on socials can really help you in person. So if you are an introvert, walking into a room and people actually know a bit about you can actually be more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think people miss that quite a lot. And that can be quite useful. So if you don't feel like networking in person.
We met our current comms consultant from a comment I made on something at a round table or something. And we had a brilliant conversation after. So it's always somebody who remembers something and then turn that into a chat or whatever, wouldn't they? So
People have taken things on CVs around hobbies. I sort of started in this industry thinking that was a really relevant part of a CV, and if people didn't want to put anything in there, I wouldn't force them to do it. But it does generate that opportunity. If someone's going to a networking event, they do look at your CV. Is there a commonality with that person that I can use to easily introduce myself in a conversation? And I think it's a really important human part of the selling, really.
People don't connect with each other, do they, really, over, oh, I'm a surveyor, you're a surveyor too, that's nice, that's what I'm saying. People don't connect through that kind of stuff. They connect through personal stuff, whether it's, children or the bake-off or politics or I love my job because that's how.
And one of the first things I try and do at a networking event or anything like that is just to try and get away from the work conversations and onto something I can comfortably talk about that I'm interested in. And again, it's when somebody once said to me, when you're at a networking event, find out what the other person's interested in and talk to them about it, because you'll have a far more interesting session than if you were trying to talk about work or trying to talk about something that only you were interested in. Try and find out what they're interested in.
Being inquisitive, everyone loves talking about themselves.
People do like to talk about themselves.
He says, talking over everyone.
One very quick question that came up earlier, I think it's disappeared now, but I thought it was quite a good point, actually, is the profile pictures on LinkedIn. Do we all have views on profile pictures on LinkedIn and what they should look like? Should they be authentic? Should they be you on a night out in Ibiza? Or should they be professional? What do you think?
Of course they should be professional. It's a professional environment. There's been some work done, some studies, proper studies, people much cleverer than I am, about profile pictures and how important it is, particularly in something like social media or on a website. People are going to scroll past it really quickly, and they need to be able to then recognise you when they meet you in person. So when we say a professional picture, we don't mean one taken by a proper photographer. We mean something that shows your whole face in the way you look when you're at work.
And also quite like recency as well. So if it's like from 20 years old, which that people do, right? Which is always weird.
Yeah, I don't look like that anymore.
I think I'm guilty of that. I am looking to get my photo updated because I think it's about 6 years old. And
no, it's somewhere like they look like a different person.
But yeah, we've got a whole paper on examples of what not to do in terms of profile pictures on LinkedIn, and some of the examples we found by searching through LinkedIn for bad LinkedIn pictures is incredible. Some of the half naked people sitting in front of a webcam and stuff like that, and you're just like, what?
You wouldn't dress like that at work. So yeah, try not that whole kind of like glass of champagne in your hand, look at me at the races.
Yeah.
No, try not to be too sexy, try not to be too scruffy, take your sunglasses off. You know, I'm really impressed that you climbed Mount Everest, but that picture of you does not look like you.
Yeah.
It's coming back to boundaries again, isn't it, really? I think when LinkedIn first launched, it was purely professional. We're all encouraging everyone to bring some of that personality in, but it's not Instagram, it's not Facebook. And I think some people confuse the distinction between them.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I think that's it. It doesn't look like there's any more Q&A coming in. Thank you, Ayo, for jumping in at the end. Sort of just say hello to you, and because I know you've got good opinions. And if people don't already follow Ayo on LinkedIn or aren't connected to her, do seek her out, because she's got.
I'm going to be doing that today.
Content.
Well worth it.
And yeah, thank you all for joining. And that's pretty much it, I think. So we'll have another. We're going to take a break because it's summer, so we won't be doing an August construction cast, but I'm sure there'll be one in the September, October period. So we'll see you then. Thank you to Ayo, to Lucy, Andy, and to Marie. And yeah, we'll see you all soon.